So today's vlog, we're diving into a message new Chief Scout Dwayne Fields said to inspire new future volunteers on Radio 4's Today's program. But before we dive into it, let's just have a recap on what Dwayne said.
35 hours a year works out to less than an hour a week to volunteer your time. We know how today's society, the cost of living, all the other challenges people have and the demands on their time, it can all build up. We're asking for 35 hours per year. It has so many far-reaching benefits.
So in a nutshell, Dwayne's proposing that organizations, companies give volunteers 35 hours a year so we don't have to use our own annual leave or time owing or whatever you want to say. And I thought, let's see how that goes with you guys. And I've been following a big thread over on First Facebook. Someone posted it just the other day, and nearly over 150 comments of pros and cons. And I thought, you know what, let's dive into it on this vlog and see if we can work anything out. So Dwayne spent Christmas on Radio 4, and one of the podcasts I listened to just the other day was Dwayne talking about the Scout Manifesto. Yeah. So the Scout Manifesto 2024 was launched beginning of the year or sometime like that. And one of the big key points in that manifesto was Scouts UK went to the government to see if they could organize, they could talk to companies to give us some time off to volunteer rather than using our own personal annual leave time. Scouts aren't just struggling. There are many other charities in the UK struggling for adult volunteers, okay? People have so many other things to do. And back in, the 60s, 70s, 80s, when volunteering was a big thing, that's because there wasn't much things to do. Yeah, there wasn't other opportunities to do. There wasn't hours of scrolling on Facebook and TikTok. And now we have that, well, I'm about to say opportunity, but the time to waste. Yeah. There was no internet. There was nothing like that. So people thought, let's give our own time up, do something, learn those skills. And back then, charities were thriving with volunteers. But now, with a whole new mindset of volunteers wanting to, well, what's in it for me? Yeah, rather than just, well, if I'm giving my time, what are you going to give me? That's the mentality that us adults in 2024, 2025, that's what we're thinking. There's been a whole lot of research about it, and that's what they come across. That people volunteering in the UK want to basically say, what's in it for me? And that's one of the reasons of the Scout Manifesto 2024. And this is this big thing that Dwayne Fields, Chief Scout, is pushing. Asking companies, organizations, would you be willing to give some time to your employees who volunteer? Now, I asked this last year to my hospital, and nothing came about of it. Maybe it's something I should push in the new year, but I've asked 2 or 3 times, and nothing, zero. So I was thinking, how can we get volunteers, and how can Dwayne's 35 hours a year help us as Scout leaders? And I was just thinking, okay, it's a big push on companies, and just reading comments on First Facebook about people who are self-employed, who actually have companies who employ Scout leaders. And for the one-man bands, if you're self-employed, taking a day off at the moment, we know you don't get paid. So it's not going to help. It doesn't help you as the leader because it's your company and you're not going to get paid. And it doesn't help that self-employed company because they don't get paid either. So if you're self-employed, it's a tricky one. Large organizations who have thousands of employees, brilliant for them. It looks great that they're saying we support our employees that go off volunteering and stuff. But what happens if you're a small company? Well, I was thinking like government could help. Maybe there could be some sort of national insurance or tax refund, cheaper tax. I don't know. That's not my field, but I was just thinking, if there's an incentive to volunteer. So you would have to volunteer for X amount of hours. Maybe you have to volunteer for 6 months or a year before you can apply for it. And then you get tax relief, something like that. One of the big reasons I don't do summer camp is because it eats into my annual leave, and my annual leave is precious. I give up enough of my annual leave to, take a Friday off and a Monday off to do the weekend camps. So to take a whole week off, to take some 20, 30 young people off summer camp would be brilliant. But my wife, my kids, they're not going to have it. They're going to say, well, what's in it for us? You go away for a week, we lose you for a week, and you lose your annual leave to Scouts. But if I could take some time, if I could apply for that 35 hours a year and amalgamate it for a week, then maybe that's a chance I could go and do summer camp. I don't know how the 35 hours a year is going to play. Can you take it in one big chunk? Does it have to be 1 hour per week? Can you put it together and take a week off? I'm not sure. Dwayne didn't explain enough in the show, in the Radio 4 today's program, on how that would work. But I think it's a brilliant idea, so my scouting is in the evening, and I'm very lucky. My hospital where I work, I asked for a Monday evening off, so I just do an early shift, so that doesn't cut into my annual leave or anything like that. But like I say, I take a Monday off and a Friday if we go camp, and if I could apply for those hours, instead of taking one annual leave day and one annual leave on Monday, I could just take the annual leave on the Friday and then take some hours on the Monday, something like that. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, because I think it's a brilliant idea that we should get back in behind Dwayne. And I'm not just talking about Scout Leaders. There are millions of other charities out there. We've got soup kitchens. We've got pet charities, homeless charities, people who go out and support cancer charities. There's a load of charities out there that only run, like us as Scout Leaders, with volunteers. So if there was a government incentive to get people volunteering, I think that would make a big push on people volunteering in 2025. I wanted to just read 2 comments I found online from Scout Leaders. And one of them, these are going to be anonymous, all right? One of them said, "I'm self-employed, so it's not easy. If I don't work, I don't get paid. I just have to take it on the chin and suck up the costs and loss of income. I don't see how employees could afford to cover it. Bit of a dream, sadly. And after all, we chose to volunteer." That's right, we do choose to volunteer. But without us volunteers, there'll be nothing. There'll be no charities. There'll be no scouts. There'll be no other soup kitchens or homeless charities. And this is the one that kind of got me as well. It's tough enough to run a business currently, and also feel for the organizations wishing to create more volunteers. Maybe businesses and government could create sponsorships for such activities. Leaders give up their time and they enjoy scouting, and also, this is the bit, they give up expenses too, like fuel, tow bars, damage to vehicles, and also their own equipment that they purchase. It needs to have more of an incentive for businesses to buy in. It's good people are thinking about it. I think it was that last line where it said about, buying stuff. How much money have we lost? It's easier just to forget about the £2 that we buy paper or crafts every week, rather than the hassle of putting it in, getting a refund, that kind of thing. Fuel, drive into camp, knocks on cars, or I took a big scratch to my boot because I wasn't paying attention when I was trying to push some stuff in for camp a few years ago. Now I've got a scratch, but shh, don't tell the wife. But there's things like that as well, isn't it? But if there was an incentive, if we could get a tax relief, maybe that is the answer. I don't know. If you haven't listened to the podcast that Dwayne did over Christmas on Radio 4, just go on BBC Sounds and search for Radio 4's today's program, Dwayne Fields. It's about 15 minutes long, and Dwayne talks about his story, his personal story about moving from Jamaica to London and how he got into Scouts and how Scouts has created the journey on where he is now. And he talks about that 35 hours per year volunteering for employees. So Scout Leaders, are you behind Dwayne's manifesto? Are you behind the Scouts Manifesto 2024? Asking organizations, asking companies for some free time for us volunteers in Scouts. Comment below if your company, your employer supports you as a volunteer. Maybe they give you that time off already. It'll be interesting to know, not just as volunteering for Scout Leaders, but for other charities. Do you get support? Do you get the backing behind your employee? Comment below. It'll be interesting to see how many Scout Leaders get the backing from the employee of giving this time for charities.